Welcome to What in the World, a project initiated by Hungry for Life International. Today's podcast is titled Helping Without Hurting, and Jess will be interviewing Wilhelmina Krul. So grab your headphones, sit back, relax, and listen.
Welcome to this week's episode of What in the World, Hungry for Life podcast. This week we are talking about helping without hurting. And our expert panel today is Will Krul. She is our newest staff member here at Hungry for Life and also married to our Director of International Operations, Jason, who we all heard from a few weeks ago. So welcome and thank you for sitting down with me to talk about this. Will has an interesting story. Her and Jason lived in Haiti for how many years, Will?
7 years.
7 years, and she has a lot of experience on this topic, so that is why we asked her to join us this week. Can you tell us a little bit about when you started Hungry for Life, how you came to be here, and a little bit about your time in Haiti? How long were you there? What did you do? That kind of stuff.
Okay, well, my story with missions starts about 13 years ago when my husband Jason and I, with our little 1-year-old son, moved to Haiti. We were super young, 22 and 23.
So young.
Didn't know a lot about anything, even though our organization that we went with, Mission Aviation Fellowship, or MAF, did their utmost to prepare us for this huge change in our lives. So we did that for 7 years. When we were finished our time, after 7 years in Haiti, my husband was a pilot there. So after the 7 years, the roads were starting to get a lot better there, and there was a lot of improvements in the country. So the airplane became less and less essential. So we felt God guiding us back to Canada, and my husband was able to start working with Hungry for Life. And we were really excited about that just because living in a third world country, we had learned the language, we had felt like we had learned a lot there, and we were hoping that we could still use what we learned in North America and continue to help people in poor countries and in developing countries. So my husband started with Hungry for Life pretty much right away, and then I still, in the meantime, had 2 other boys, so we have 3 boys.
And handful.
And so I was a stay-at-home mom until they went to school, and then now that they're all full-time in school, I get to be part of working here as well, which I'm really excited about.
And we're so happy that you and Jason decided to migrate over to Hungry for Life. You guys have collectively a huge wealth of knowledge that can help this organization and help our donor groups. So we're happy that you're here. So I wanted to introduce the topic a little bit. Which is, as mentioned, helping without hurting. There's a lot of opinions out there of how to help without hurting. So there are a lot of different organizations are attacking this and addressing this issue differently, and a lot of them are very valid in how they're doing so. So I didn't want to focus so much on exactly the right way to do things, but I wanted to use you, Will, as a resource of stories and experiences to speak to us on what you have seen work in the field and not work, and maybe some ideas of where we should go from here. So to preface this all, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the book or the concept When Helping Hurts, which is essentially the idea that sometimes without proper pre-evaluation or monitoring or goals and motives, money or aid sent to countries of poverty doesn't actually fix any systemic problems. It kind of hurts and disrupts their flow of development. So my first question to you is, when you hear When Helping Hurts, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that could be a little bit of a discouraging statement, and it could discourage people from wanting to help for fear that they might be hurting rather than helping. The Bible talks about us not only looking out for our own interests, but also for the interests of others. It also says if you see someone who is hungry or naked or poor, and you say, oh, God bless you, but you don't do anything to help them, what profit does that have? And it also talks about loving your neighbor as yourself. Even John the Baptist, when after he finished baptizing the people, the soldiers and stuff would come to him and like, well, what do we do now? And he's like, well, if you have two tunics or 2 coats, give to someone who doesn't have one. Or if you have extra food, do the same thing. So the Bible is full of us caring about other people, looking out for the interests of other people, and not being selfish and just thinking about ourselves. Is there a right way to do that and a wrong way? I think so. I think that the struggle could be is when you're going to a different culture that you might think what the other person needs when that might not be the case. Mm-hmm. So when helping hurts, the best thing to do is really to ask the question of how can I help you best? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you and I were discussing this ahead of the podcast, and the question that we kept coming back to was, how can I help? And that is like a very important question to kind of circle around to in this conversation. So I'll leave that there. So I want to talk a bit about poverty in and of itself. So I was listening to a different podcast with the co-author of When Helping Hurts was the speaker on this. And so he talked about how North Americans define poverty as a lack of food and a lack of clothing or basic necessities. But if you ask somebody who lived in poverty, the answer was quite different. And it didn't necessarily focus so much on the material side of it, but their take on their value, which is far more relational. And I want to focus on that for a second. So if poverty was considered more from a relational context, it would result in a more relational way to help the poor versus just signing checks and sending it over. So what are your thoughts on taking a more relational approach to help alleviate poverty? And where does relationship fit into helping the poor? In the equation of helping the poor.
I think relationships are very, very important to everybody. God created us as relational beings. So if it's just, you see someone that needs help and without showing any concern or lack or care, but you're just kind of giving them money, is not really the answer. And I think too, I liked what you said about the difference between not having enough to eat, enough clothing, and etc., to the difference of not having good relationships, right? Because that is a difference in poverty. And I found in places like Haiti, it was definitely more lack of food, lack of clothing, lack of proper housing, but they were rich in their relationships. Mm. Whereas in other places, and maybe even in North America, people could be poor in their relationships. They might have enough to eat and a home to live in, but poor in having a safe home and a safe place to be. So those are two very different things. And I think those are things that we need to think about when we're trying to help someone. What is their poverty, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great question. What is their poverty? What is the context of their culture? Every situation is just so different, even in the same country. Mm-hmm. Like contextually, it's worth taking a step back and evaluating that before jumping into anything, mm-hmm. if you're wanting to help. So another follow-up question to that would be, what is the balance between writing the checks and building relationship? Is there a balance? Is one better than the other? Where does that, from your experience, what's the balance?
I think that when you're talking here about overseas mission, it's really, really important to establish relationships with locals on the ground, with field partners. And what we've seen in our time in Haiti, the best field partners and missionaries were actually couples that one was from North America and one was from the local country. So that was really interesting because then they could really do well. The North American knew how the other North Americans thought, and the local knew how the local people thought. And it just, that always worked really, really well. Like, and there's actually lots of them out there that had. So
you're
had one
you're
of each.
saying the answer is a dating app? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Did I interrupt your thought? Sorry.
No. So even if, you know, for us, if we right now we can't travel due to COVID, to continue that relationship with our field partners on the ground, and those field partners then have those relationships with the locals. They're there, they can see what's going on, the people in the communities trust them, and they are also really good about what many of the field partners do is they include locals in their boards. They include locals with volunteer opportunities and things like that. So everything is relationships.
Yeah, I
right?
really like that because another comment that I heard in the podcast that I was listening to is it might hurt to go into a country with your own agenda and set of plans for efficiency and all this kind of stuff, but when you're robbing people, the local people, of their own responsibilities, and you're kind of disrupting their own development plan because a mindset could develop, we're not too sure about that, but if we just wait, somebody will come do it. And so not robbing people of their own responsibilities, and also not hurting the testimony of the local church down there, right? What if a local church down there was trying really hard to get resources for like a feeding program, and they're working on their own plan for that, and then a church comes in and just sweeps in and is the hero? Well, that takes away from the local church, and I think we need to circle back to the question, how can we help? How can I help? Yeah.
And I think the answer really is to empower and be part of the local church. And all the partners that I can think of on the top of my head, they all work together and through the local churches, right? So again, it's all about relationships. So does money play a part in it? Yes, because
of course it does.
Right, yeah, of course it does,
Yeah.
because people need resources to help others, but yeah, it has to be through relationships.
And to that point, my next point was, I don't think sending money is hurting people at all. That's the solution is not to pull back on sending funds. It's to send it with a proper plan. But where does it become dangerously close to crossing that threshold of helping versus hurting? Okay, and also with the question, what do you believe? Actually, no, I'm going to start with the first question. Where does it become too close of the threshold of helping versus hurting? And maybe we kind of answered this already.
Well, I think it becomes dangerously close when you have people in North America saying, like, donor-directed funds,
right,
saying, okay, I'm a doctor and I feel like this community should have a hospital, so I'm going to raise money for a hospital without any, but what Hungry for Life is really great about is that, hold on a minute, let's go and talk to the people there. Let's go see, do they have a clinic? What do people do for hospitals? Is there one in the town next door? So just doing your due diligence and your research. And on Friday, we just went through that, how in-depth and intensive Hungry for Life does this research before they hit the green light on a project like that.
It's painstaking sometimes.
It is. It's but it's very, very comforting for me to see that there's not just this person wants to give $100,000 to a hospital, so we're going to make that happen. No, that's not the case.
I know.
Right? We're going to make sure that what the hospital is something they want and something they need, and it's going to benefit, and we're going to be asking a lot of questions before we get to that point. So,
I know, that's what I love about how we operate with our projects as well. I'm going to skip the next question, which was the biggest pitfall of North Americans wanting to help alleviate poverty, because I feel like we kind of covered that question. Is there anything you wanted to add, though, to that?
I think just being careful to make assumptions about other people and not fully understanding what's going on. Like, I can quickly share a short little story.
Yeah.
So when we moved to Haiti, our first 3 months, we were supposed to live in a little village in the central plateau of Haiti where we didn't know anybody. And the MAF's idea was, we want to give you cultural immersion. And if you're if you're in the capital city, close to the airport, then we're just going to end up sneaking Jason away and make him fly because we need him so badly. So like, if you're out there, you're going to have to figure out a lot of things on your own, and you're going to be able to learn the language uninterrupted. So I remember going there and like, seeing eventually like more and more like kids walking around without clothes on. And I was just like, oh, like, this is terrible. Like, they don't have anything to wear. So I would like dig into my own suitcase and try to find clothes for the kids to wear, and I would use like little elastics to tie them because of course I'm much bigger than a little kid. And the locals just thought it was so funny, and they laughed and laughed. And later on I came to realize that the day that they weren't wearing clothes was wash day, and it just made a lot more sense for them to take and wash everything at once. And the kids loved the freedom of just running around without clothes. So
it wouldn't, of course. Yeah.
So it was just funny. But yeah, it was me making assumptions that they had nothing to wear when that actually really wasn't the case at all.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Haiti, throughout your years in Haiti, can you walk us through some examples of helping done well and helping gone wrong? I know you and Jason have hosted a lot of our teams too. So I'm sure you got some good stories. Is there anything you can recall that was done well or done poorly?
Well, when we lived in Haiti, receiving the Hungry for Life teams, we were right away impressed with all the planning and prep and the cultural planning that was done before teams or even come here to help them. We experienced the earthquake in Haiti in 2010, and shortly after that, once we returned back to Haiti, we had teams from our own church wanting to come and build, and we had none of that. We were just like, people would show up, and then again, like with all these preconceived ideas on how things should be done, and we worked through them the best we could, but we really noticed a huge difference between having all like teams that were culturally prepped and things planned really well to teams that weren't.
To aid in your / the locals' agenda versus just coming in with their own. I want you to share the story. Okay, so we're in this time of not sending teams overseas, so it's hard to really touch on the relationship building aspect of it. However, we are doing, this is just a side note for our viewers, we are doing virtual connects between our groups and our field partners, which we will be posting on our social media accounts. They're very interesting, so tune into those. But you were telling me about a really good example of one of our field partners taking the donor money and engaging locals. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So in 2020, right before COVID kind of shut everything down, I had the privilege to go to the Philippines and work with our partner Strong Roots Ministries there. So it's an example of a Filipino man married to a North American woman. So just really, really interesting. I'm very, very thankful I got that opportunity to go there and actually see with my own eyes what was all going on there. They have a hotel on the island of Boracay. It's a small little island, very, very beautiful, and it's made all its money on tourism. Okay, so as beautiful, beautiful beaches, but then the people that work in the tourism industry were paid very little, so they would live in like tiny little shacks that were like smaller than a chicken coop, and even I've never seen in Haiti where there was a home that we built for someone that it was only waist height, so they could only crouch in their home. And this was a husband and wife with 4 children, and I got to be friends with her on Facebook, and now she just had girl number 5.
Oh wow.
So, and it was super exciting that we were able to build a proper home for them, and that her new baby gets to live in a nicer house. And so when COVID hit and the island closed to tourism, 98% of people lost their jobs, and hunger became an issue. So Joven and Anita, so they had contacts in Canada, let the people here know, what, we're running into problems here. People are getting more and more hungry at the point of starving. So people were happy to give. These were people that they knew, trusted partners. So gave the money there, and Joven's like, you know what, I'm here right now by myself, and I can't cook and buy all this food. So he just got volunteers from the community to help him, and more people are helping him with this. And I don't know what the number is right now. I want to say over 100,000 meals, but they do a 6 days a week meal program that they deliver to families, to full families.
So the locals are
all helping with preparing the food and delivering the food and being part of it. And so many people want to be part of it, because helping feels good. And to give the person the gift to be able to help others is a really wonderful thing as well.
I love that example. It's a really good one. So in closing, so I got really excited about this topic because I don't think there's a perfect solution to this, but I was excited to talk with you about your experience in Haiti and kind of being on the other side of helping. And you've lived in a poverty-stricken country. You've seen helping gone wrong. You've seen helping done well. And I love your answer to the next question, which is, how should people help?
I learned in my time in Haiti that the simple answer to that really is go back to the Bible. See what God has to say. And what does he say? He says, love others as yourself, right? So then what I started to do when I was in doubt, I did ask cultural advice, of course, but I'd always think, if I was that other person, how would I feel? And that just helps me so much. That simple little thing, do unto others as you would have them do to you. Simple command in the Bible. And you know what? And also God promises in James where he says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, and he gives to all liberally. So God is willing to give us wisdom. He gives us his Holy Spirit to teach us and to help us in everything we do. So go back to the Bible. And I was just thinking about it today, Bible, the basic instructions before leaving Earth. So you got to read your instruction book.
I love that acronym. I haven't heard that before this morning. So the takeaway that I hope people get on this is to ask God first. That's why I love your answer. It wasn't like get in contact with the proper organization and come up with this amazing plan and get all these donors. No, it's ask God first. How can I help? Where do you want me? And then obviously the next step would be do your research. Don't go into things blindly. Don't give blindly. Involve third-party organizations who have done that research and who are doing a good job, who are reputable. And don't be scared to help. That's all. That's kind of what I would like the takeaway to be for this. Is there anything you wanted to add, or should we?
No, I think that was great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So if any of you want to know any more about what we're exactly doing overseas at the moment, feel free to hit up our website at hungryforlife.org. There's a tab at the top that says International Partnerships, and we update that regularly, and you can get a lot of great stories there too. So thanks again for tuning in. Thanks, Will, for joining. And that's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to What in the World, where we seek to educate and inspire. Here at Hungry for Life, we are passionate about your group having a global impact and eradicating needless suffering. For more information, head over to our website at hungryforlife.org. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you may listen to podcasts. Tune in every other week for another conversation about what is happening at Hungry for Life.